Welcome back, everybody. I'm Matt Williamson. I'm here with part 4 of my 70s album collection, and I left off at a very interesting letter, and that's the letter O. We're going to talk about the Ohio Players. Now, the Ohio Players are probably one of the most popular funk bands of the decade, and they recorded on a label called Westbound Records, and that's what the label looks like, which is kind of a cool label. And this label was out of Detroit. The Ohio Players were from Dayton, Ohio. So they were, to have a band be this funky and this good over this long period of time, you would have thought they'd been from one of the coasts, but they're from Dayton. So the first album, you may recognize this one. This is called Pain. So they started this series of albums that were very provocative and very, they had kind of this bondage S&M type of motif here. And let's see, the inside, you see the whip there. So this is the first album, and this model on here, her name is Pat Evans, and she has kind of an interesting background. Had been modeling for a while. In the 60s, she was one of the first to actually wear an afro, which was frowned upon. And then at some point after all this issues with hair, she shaved her head. The black agencies didn't want anything to do with her. They didn't think she was black enough on top of that. So she had to go to the white agencies, who really started to utilize her bald head and thought it was really interesting. And she started doing work with Isaac Hayes and designing some of his wardrobe. She's a designer. She's also a makeup artist. She's quite talented. She continued to get work from the Ohio Players. So this is the next album, Pleasure. And all of these fold out. If I can get it here. Come on. Here we go. All right, so continuing with this kind of bondage motif, and very risque for the day. And the Ohio Players had big hits. I mean, they had Fire, Love Roller Coaster. Those were the two number ones. Yeah, so we got the chain on the inside. They had other hits like Jive Turkey and Funky Worm. They had a lot of hits on the R&B charts that weren't on the pop charts, but still very big band. And they wrote all their own material. I think they shared the writing credits. So this is why this band lasted pretty long, because they were pretty together until the IRS got a hold of them. Then that kind of ruined everything. Next album, Ecstasy. So here we have more of this, but we have two guys here. So Pat Evans was, we got the bondage stuff on the inside as well, Ecstasy. So Pat Evans was rather a shy person. She's not proud of these covers, apparently. But, she had to put food on the table and everything. So just see what we got here. I'm getting out of order here. All right, so this next one, Climax. This one is a little more disturbing because she's stabbing the guy in the back. And on the inside, we got the knives. So the inside always shows kind of the weapon. And then the outside shows kind of a seductive cover until you unfold it, then it looks very oppressive. Okay, so then the Greatest Hits comes out, and they decide to do, well, this is probably my favorite cover, but this one, let's open it up first and show you. So here we have the very deceptive, beautiful face of Pat Evans, and then we open it up, and there's a noose around her neck. Now the inside has all the previous 4 albums expanded or unfolded. So I wonder if they ever did any posters of those. Maybe did a singular poster with all those. That would be kind of interesting. I guess you could just put the album cover up on the wall too. But that is the Greatest Hits. This is, I think, the last one she did. This is called Rattlesnake. This is also a compilation. And I think this may have come out as they were changing labels. So here we got this. And the snake, of course. Oh, bogey. Time out here. This dog might bark. Actually, as you see, they went from kind of a different masthead of the name and titles from this font to this font, and this would carry throughout the rest of the decade. Hey, Bogey, go sit down. Go sit down. Get up there. Get up there. Okay, we are on, so they switched labels, they moved to Mercury, and in doing so, they changed the whole style of this, of using Pat Evans, the bald black model, and they went to a sexier type of photography. So this is Skin Tight, always a black model, and so we're getting a little more, yeah, just more sexy, a little more cutting edge that way, and cutting edge this way. Yeah, so, yeah, actually, the band is in here too. Oh, I kind of forgot about the guys. All right, so that's Skin Tight. Then we got Fire, the very big hit song with the invisible hose around this woman here. And we got the centerfold. So these all have basically centerfolds, starting with the Mercury albums. So, and Playboy was huge, you know, like the Burt Reynolds centerfold, or that was Cosmopolitan. But all the Playboy centerfolds obviously were very big during this time. So they just carried it right through to the album, the rock music. Now this is the one I remember the most. This is the one you snuck the peeks at if you could find somebody whose older brother had this album. Honey. All right, so yeah, that's getting a little more curvy, as I can see, a little more sensuous. And well, and even more so in the centerfold. So yeah, this, yeah, not much more needs to be said about that one. Next one, we got Contradiction. So let's see, so this one, Honey was about 75. The first album was 72. Contradiction is like 76. So this is a horse with an apple, which you wouldn't have maybe, I never would have thought that was where that was going. And then the inside, we've got this. So yeah, they didn't really mess around. The funk music was generally very sensual anyway. I mean, in my opinion, so much better than what we're getting from rap music today, from the so-called R&B section of popular music today. This band really were great players, really laid down some great grooves, and wrote their own material. So this is a Mercury label compilation, gold, and this is a new black model who's got the shaved head, and inside there she is. And this was used, what was the hit song on this? Oh yeah, Feel the Beat, which is this. So this is the 12-inch single with a similar stuff here. So I had to pick that one up. So next we're on Angel. We're in 1977, so we went black and white here, and a little bit of airbrushing out, but we've got a very sensual body here on the front of the album, and then inside, unfortunately, we have the band. Not as nice to look at, are they? Okay, next one, Mr. Mean. So Mr. Mean was, this was the music for a soundtrack. So we have the band on the cover for the first time, but we have a naked model here. And we open it up and we have the whole band. So the movie was called Mr. Mean, starred Fred the Hammer Williamson, a blaxploitation film. I've never seen it, but that was for film. Then Jesse Lady, this is 1978. So kind of the, let's show, open this up. Oh yeah, this one, so this one doesn't open up like that. It opens up this way. It gives us the centerfold, kind of predictable. Kind of can tell where she's going with this. And that's that album, that's 78. And then finally, the last one of the decade is Everybody Up. So this one's got, this one's gonna get me thrown off YouTube probably. This has got the wet t-shirt. So you can see they weren't letting up at all. A little bit of a sweaty body there. So anyway, you know, I started collecting these albums just because the covers I thought were so cool and interesting, and the background of Pat Evans, that first model that I showed you, all those early ones with Pat Evans, the photographer was Joel Brodsky, famous rock album photographer. So there's some stories behind here that are kind of interesting, but I thought I'd go over those because I started just getting more and more Ohio Players albums because The covers were so sensuous and so provocative. So changing gears slightly, here we go to less provocative Tony Orlando and Dawn. So I had a couple albums, and growing up, it was really hard not to like them as a kid in the 70s. You know, Candida and Tie Yellow Ribbon. Then we got the Osmonds. These aren't in any particular order. Donnie, that's his first one, I believe. This one was the big one in our house. My sisters loved the Donnie Marie show, and we watched it on every Friday night. And they even had a Donnie Marie record player with a microphone that plugged into the jack, and you could sing along. But this was the album, and this is actually a pretty good album. I mean, there's some songs on here I actually like, and heard this one more than any of the other albums. This is another TV show album, New Season. Going Coconuts, this was, I think, 78. This was a movie, and not a very good one, although I never seen it. So they get a little more disco-y here as the seasons went on. I think it was on for about 3.5 or 4 years. This is just a band covering their stuff. I picked this up cheap somewhere. Donnie, love the Bell Bottoms. Oh, got a double. Make the World Go Away. He's a little bit country. No, she's a little bit country. He's a little rock and roll. First Osmonds album, this is with One Bad Apple. They were huge for a while there. I mean, absolutely huge. Here's their Crazy Horses. They're the Osmonds doing metal. So yeah, that was a big hit, surprisingly, Crazy Horses. Oh, here's the back cover. Disco Train, Donnie. So this is 76. This is concurrent with the Donnie Marie album, so they were just on fire. We got the live in concert. We got Little Jimmy here, long-haired lover from Liverpool. That, talk about ruining it. Ruining a good thing. Sorry, Jimmy. Okay, Ozark Mountain Daredevils. This is the album with Jackie Blue on it. A song to this day I still love to hear. Don't have too much of them. Pablo Cruz, yeah, early, late days. All the guys, teenagers in the 70s, when they invite their girl over, they bring them up, light some candles, put on a little Pablo Cruz. Alan Parsons Project. This is the first album, the Edgar Allan Poe stuff. I don't have a lot of Alan Parsons, but I always like this album. This is one my cousins turned me on to. And we got Dolly. Yeah, she's got some wonderful stuff. I'm not a big country fan, but it's if you're going to have a 70s album collection, you really should have some Dolly, right? I think so. The Profile. And then we got the Partridge Family. Now, not a big fan. I collected this over the years for my 70s parties and wasn't a fan of their music, really, except for the hit or maybe a song here or there. But their album covers were always very, this is called shopping bag. This folds into a bag. Oh, got doubles on that. Let's have a look here. What does it do here? Do we want to try this on live? No, we don't want to do it. Okay, Sound Magazine. So this is like the cover of a magazine. We got the Christmas album, Christmas card. We got, this was a horrible album cover. Partridge Family Notebook, boring. Up to Date, you get the idea. I'll probably have every one of their albums. And then the Greatest Hits, which is if you're going to delve into them, this is probably the only thing you need. There you go. Okay, we've got Sean Phillips here. Now, Phillips was, this is his big album, and he was very involved with Donovan in the mid to late 60s for a while, playing 12-string guitar and some sitar. But this is an album that kind of broke him through as a solo artist. And this one's belonged to Kathy. Kathy, I have your Sean Phillips album. We got some Floyd here. I mean, it's all been said. These are in pretty bad shape. I've had these for a long time. Dark Side. I always preferred Wish You Were Here. I just like some of the songs on here better. Obviously, both landmark albums. We got some Aminals. Animals, I didn't ever really care for this album. And this is what I have left of The Wall. Apparently, I don't know what happened to it. Oh well. Okay, Poco. I think this is the first one with the original lineup. Is it the first album? I think so. Anyway, Richie Furay, Timothy B. Schmidt, Rusty Young, a couple others. More Poco, Jim Messina, George Grantham, of course. This is a double. Susie Quattro, Leather Tuscadero. So I was a big fan of Happy Days, so I didn't realize she was an actual recording star at the time, but picked some of those up. I understand she's bigger in the UK. Here's a cheapo Elvis record. I've got more Elvis records in my 60s collection, which is focusing on, the soundtrack stuff of all those cheesy movies in the 60s. Pure Prairie League, busting out. Amy. Jerry Rafferty. This is, I think, the first solo album, which is 74. So yeah, this is an early one. He took forever to make his albums. So then the next one, obviously, this is like 78, so this is City to City, the big hit. He obviously was in Steeler's Wheel before this and was slowly making a name for himself. Now this is the album that came after, which is Night Owl. And it looks like, they look very similar album covers. Obviously it's the same artist. But the way I would describe this, he did enough songs for a double album, put all the good ones on this album, put all the leftovers on this album. Was very disappointed with Night Owl. Lou Rawls, you'll never find. Anyway, Helen Reddy. So I grew up with greatest hits of Helen Reddy on 8-track, and that would often get played in the living room on Saturday mornings while we're cleaning. I am woman, hear me roar. And if you want to hear the manifesto of I Am Woman, it's written on the back of the album for you, suitable for framing. Here's that greatest hits album, but we actually had it on 8-track. It might even be in this case here somewhere, now that I think of it. Oh well. REO Speedwagon, another one of those classic rock bands that, there's a couple songs I like. The song on here I always like was Like You Do, and that always would get some radio airplay, but usually not on their greatest hits, I guess, which this is a double greatest hits of their 70s, or up to about 80. Pick this one up, just to have. I went through this classic rock period, which would have been in, I guess, the 80s, early 90s, where I was picking up stuff here and there. This was not one of them. Rhythm Heritage. Is this the theme from SWAT? Yes, it's also good. They also do Beretta's theme on here as well. Disco-fied. So yeah, Rhythm Heritage was one of those disco groups. Kind of fun. All right, let's go to the next batch here. All right, we'll just see what I can. Okay, so first one, I have this turned around here. We got some Stones. So the first Stones album, if I'm going chronologically, Exile. Now I've got my sticky fingers in the 60s section. I just love that album. That's just how these got divvied up here. This album considered by many to be their best. I've never found it to be their best. I find it to be a lot of information, a lot of average songs. I don't know, it sounds good to me. I put it on when I'm working in the basement, and I just kind of let it go. And I don't really notice one song changing from the other as much. But that's just me. Goat's Head Soup, I think, was next. And I've got that on my computer. I thought I actually had a vinyl copy of that, but I guess it's only rock and roll here, which is, I think, the lesser of all the Mick Taylor albums. I consider the Mick Taylor era to be the golden era. Well, I shouldn't say the golden era, but what an era, what an era. Black and Blue, when Ronnie Wood joins up, cool album cover. I thought this was sharp. A lot of different guitar players play on there before they settled on Ronnie. And we got the disco single of Miss You. Tattoo You, kind of a compilation album, their last hurrah, sort of. And I don't know how I wound up with Undercover, not one I would actually pay money for. Must have been given to me. It's got a couple good songs on it, but I've only got so much cash, you gotta draw the line. Linda Ronstadt. So yeah, but the very first single I bought, brand new group, brand new single, that wasn't an older 60s 45, was You're No Good by Linda Ronstadt. So I've got fond memories of Linda. And if you watch my 70s poster collection, I've got several posters of her as well. Here we have Diana, this is 71. So Diana Ross even had a variety show here. Not only was it a television show, but it was made into an album. Here, Bill Cosby, we got Danny Thomas, Jackson 5. And then her first solo album, I think 70 or 71, late 70, where she looks like an Ethiopian refugee. Yeah. We've got Lady Sings the Blues. So some of these I picked up. I had mentioned one of the other earlier videos where I had found all these, I don't know, maybe I didn't mention it. Half Price Books was getting rid of a ton of stuff for 10 cents an album. So that's where I got a lot of those soundtracks you saw in part one, stuff like Lady Sings the Blues. And this is stuff that's just nice. It might have taken me years to put on the turntable, but sometimes I put this stuff on and the timing is just good. But I mean, if you want to get any Diana Ross, this would probably do it for you. This is good enough. A good selection of her 70s hits. Oh, the Runaways. Queens of Noise. Not a big fan of the Runaways, but I would pick up a couple things here and there of their stuff. And this is one that I've got. And then I've got the Cherie and Marie Currie album that she did after she left the Runaways. This is actually 1980. So... Todd Rundgren, the Runt album. This is his Vanity Project album. We Gotta Get You a Woman. Good start to a very solid solo career. And this was the first album I bought by Rundgren. This was Herman of McHollow, 1977 or 78. And we move over to Rush here. So my friend Sal, my meager Rush collection, she would be disappointed in me. But if I need any Rush stuff, I just go to Sal. My buddy Paul's also a big Rush fan. So this is a great one, obviously. This is the one I always liked, probably the best. I'm not a big Rush connoisseur. I've seen them a couple times in concert, but I appreciate their contribution to rock, which is substantial. Moving Pictures, the Tom Sawyer album. This is what really broke them, I think, into the pop world, if you will. We've got some Samantha Sang, a little leftover Bee Gees song, Emotion. Oh, Leo Sayer. Now, who doesn't like Leo Sayer? This is the album that still cracks me up. There's an episode of The Simpsons where they're in somebody's living room or whatever, and the albums are stacked there. It was probably a flashback. And this album is in the corner. You can totally tell it's this album. And the way they drew it was just hilarious. So more Leo Sayer. Again, good stuff for my 70s party. Oh, this is a very good album. Boss Skaggs. Silk Degrees. This has got Lido Shuffle. And what's the other big hit on here? Lowdown. That's the song. I love that song. So yeah, this was a huge hit. And very serious rock fans got into Boss Skaggs, as I recall. Seals and Crofts. This is the only one I've got of theirs. It's a K-Tel album I bought. This is in the early 80s I bought this. And it just had all the hits. Okay, oh, Sedaka. Sedaka's back. This guy doesn't get talked about much these days, but when this album came out, it was huge in the early 60s, pre-Beatle era, songwriter, in that whole Brill Building deal. When he came out with this album, this was huge. This had the big hit, Laughter in the Rain. And I just was listening to that song. It was over the summer. It came on the radio. And I was just amazed at how good of a song that is, how well he sings it. And the verses, it's got unpredictable jumps in it. Just wonderful song. And then he did that song with Elton John. Bad Blood and Sad Eyes is on here. And Love Will Keep Us Together is his song. So yeah, really good singer. Doc Severinsen, Tonight Show. Tom Scott. Yeah, this I picked up not that long ago, but always kind of liked his work with Joni Mitchell. Didn't care for his work too much with the solo Beatles. Bobby Sherman. Okay, so we saw the David Cassidy stuff earlier, some Partridge Family stuff, so a little Bobby Sherman here. And these albums I always thought were kind of funny because there's always some kind of, like the Partridge Family album, some like gimmicky thing with a TV disc you can turn here, if I can get it turning. There we go. Sorry, guys. We'll go one more. Oh, imagine that, another picture of Bobby. So, yeah, he had all these like cereal box bottoms with the records on them and all that stuff. Here we go with Love, Bob. Whoa. We got the booklet coming out here. So, oh, look at this. We got the whole schmear. Look at that. And we got Here Comes Bobby. Oh, Ohio players, eat your heart out. We got Bobby Sherman. Well, we got a third one. Well, let's just go. Yeah. Wow. Here we go. Got to get that in there. All right. And what is another one here? Is this the front? Yeah, so Portrait of, okay, so here we go. Portrait of Bobby. This tears off. It's got a little thing. You can fold this out so it's a framed photo. Again, gimmick after gimmick. Carly Simon. Dress on, leg spread, not very ladylike. But good stuff. I mean, she was really a serious artist. And that singer-songwriter, she was a little, I mean, she wasn't Joni Mitchell, but she wasn't Helen Reddy either. Hot Cakes, Carly. Oh, here we go. Yeah, love the socks and the clogs. And the hat, yeah. This is what a 70s hippie looked like. You know, the fashion didn't really get better, did it? Sister Sledge, We Are Family. Got any Pittsburgh Pirate fans out there? Okay, Patti Smith. This is one of my very few new albums, my 70s collection, maybe the only one. My sister bought this for me. Wonderful record, the classic debut, and worth having a good copy of. Rex Smith. This guy, I didn't really know who he was until I started searching in the bargain bins, which would have been roughly 1990. So he was kind of a late 70s, early 80s guy who, kind of a pretty boy who never made it. This one, and this is one I got 25 cents upstairs at Record Head. And this is unsealed in shrink. Oh, there you go. What was this hit? Bear with me here. Sooner or Later, I think that might have been the hit. Anyway. Oh, here's like kind of an older version of Rex Smith. This is David Soul, who just passed away last year, I believe. So Starsky and Hutch, he was a singer before he got into television. In fact, I kind of recall he was the Masked Singer. This is the late 60s. Good-looking guy. Don't give up on it. Yeah, not the best song. A bit sappy. But, yeah. I remember mostly from Starsky and Hutch. Here we got Rick Springfield. I think this is one of the first albums. Speak to the Sky is on this one. And Springsteen. I've never been a Springsteen fan. Got a couple albums in the collection. And, I appreciate his work. I respect the quality, but I've just never been a fan. So Born to Run, another great album cover, black and white. I mean, this is killer. And he's got some songs I do like, but I just never had the patience for him. Ringo. So he just had his new Cowboy album come out. Well, this is the old one. This album, I don't rate Ringo's solo stuff very high at all. But this album is actually, at least it's consistent. Got some great players on it. Like, you got Jerry Reed on here. How bad can it be, right? Apple label. So yeah, Ringo. I don't believe he plays drums on this, though. Couldn't cut it with the country guys. And then, of course, the big hit, 73. This has got the booklet and, everything was Ringo Mania for about a year, and then that was the end of that. This is Blast. This is the Apple label, which I always kind of liked the red apple on this one. This album feels a little bit thin to me. He had quite a few hits by this time, but would have been better with a few extra album cuts, I think. This one, I know somebody maybe gave me this one. I do like the song Rack My Brain, though, but I don't think there's a reason to redo Back Off Boogaloo, do you think? And this was the last album he did. He basically couldn't get a contract after this. That was the end of him for quite a while. Okay, Steely Dan. Now, the first one you see here, I don't recognize that Steely Dan album because this is a soundtrack from 71 called You Gotta Walk It Like You Talk It or You Lose That Beat. This is, it was with Richard Pryor. So this is Fagan Becker and Denny Diaz, the guitarist. It's got a couple interesting songs on it, but they're still kind of getting it together. All right, Steely Dan. Excuse me. If there was ever a band that was, to me, rivaled the Beatles in terms of quality tracks per album, in other words, almost no filler, Steely Dan would be the band. And I still listen to Steely Dan quite a bit. First album, this one takes me back to walking around as a kid in the early 70s. When I hear some of these songs, I still think of that time. Then we go to Countdown to Ecstasy, a little darker. Boston Rag, I love it. Pearl the Quarter, King of the World. So yeah, and we got a photo of the band. Again, not exactly fit for 16 magazine, but boy, could they play. Pretzel Logic. This was my first favorite album by them, and here we were treated to a picture of the band here. A little bit elongated there to fit them all in, but was always a big fan of this record. Night by Night, Rick, You Don't Lose That Number, Any Major Dude. I love that song. With a Gun, with Luger in hand. Katie Lied. Okay, this is the one that's really grown on me over the years. This one's also a bit on the dark side. And let's see, my standout song, I guess the song I listen to the most are Any World and Throwback the Little Ones. Those are my two favorite songs on here. And again, an interesting, they've got good album covers. They're not band, that's what I like about them. The band is never on the cover, but it's got some interesting photography on it. This is more of an illustration, Royal Scam, another just killer album. And one, I've called almost every one of their albums my favorite at one point or another. And this one is probably my current favorite. So yeah, great album. And then we get the Abbey Road of the 70s, Asia, an almost perfect sounding album, engineering-wise, song-wise. Didn't give you too much. There's only 7 songs on there. Is that right? Yeah, 7 songs. They're a little bit longer, but what a masterpiece. And where do you go from here? Well, they tried. Well, actually, they didn't. Before I get to that, I gotta jump the route here on myself. This is FM, the soundtrack, which they had the song FM on. Double album, all kinds of stars of the day. You know, you got Steve Miller, Eagles, Boston, Linda Ronstadt. So great song, FM, which is very similar to the production style of Asia. And then the album that came out, I think late 80, this took a long time to do because Becker got hit by a car, broke his leg. His girlfriend died of a heroin overdose. Somebody wiped clean one of the tracks they recorded. They were going to get sued for the song Gaucho that they ripped off. You know, it was a rough time. And this album, consequently, is a little bit darker than Asia. And I wouldn't call it, like I kind of refer to the Beatles, Pepper, and Magical Mystery Tour as kind of like a double album. I would listen to those together. Similar to Asia and Gaucho. But I found Gaucho a little bit, I don't know if it's over slick. There's a darkness to it I just can't quite put my finger on. Still very good. My Rival. Can listen to that all day long. All right, so let's push this aside here. And I've got one more small stack. I'm just going to breeze through these here quickly. The dog is asleep. Good. Ugh. Okay, so on top here we've got Rod Stewart. Rod the Mod. So I've got a couple other of his downstairs with Heather's albums, but yeah, some of these albums are, you know, this was my cousins turned me on to Rod Stewart. All that early 70s rock, they were teaching me properly, I guess. But I was a fan of, I think more of a fan of the Faces, actually. This really folds out. Okay, that's not much to look at. And then we have Do You Think I'm Sexy? This album, Blondes Have More Fun. This is when his audience kind of turned on him. The biggest hit of really So, you know, disco. I'll probably do a video. I know this isn't 60s, but I really feel compelled to do a video on disco. And then maybe I would do a video on hair bands of the 80s because there's some similarities there I'd like to point out. And it's just the progression of how pop music went from decade to decade. Here we got Barbara. And, you know, always in the mix with big selling albums. So here's Rupert Holmes, by the way, involved in that album. Great photography, beautiful shot. Star is Born with Christopherson. We got Barry Gibb. So she's hooking up with everybody here. He wrote the song Guilty. Was that in a film? I think that was in a movie. Okay, we're at Styx here. This is Styx 2. I don't have all their albums. The first album's got a great single. It's called Best Thing. It's usually forgotten, but it's a wonderful single. It did chart. Styx 2's got Lady on it. And this was on the Wooden Nickel label. And this is, there was, after 6-2, it's Man of Miracles, Serpent is Rising. I think this is the 5th album, Crystal Ball, the first one with Tommy Shaw. And of course, the huge hit, Grand Illusion. My buddy Dan had this one. We listened to this one a lot. I always like the back cover, the trees, them behind the trees. And as you can see, this was, I saw fit to put a hole through this one, string it up from one of my 70s parties. Keep those strings there, never know when I'm going to have another party. Pieces of 8, another huge seller. Yeah, I mean, it Sticks to Me was a top 40 radio band. This was Babe, the #1 song. This album I never really cared for, but still some quality stuff. You know, I'm never a fan of their guitar players, really. I mean, nobody copies their guitar stuff, their guitar solos or anything. And then they went to this direction and blamed Dead is Too Young for it. But they went along with it. What can you do? It was the time, sign of the times with the video and all that. It worked for a while. Don't have the live album, which came out after that, which is basically the end of the career, or temporarily, Donna Summer. So I actually like Donna Summer's earlier stuff. She was really cutting edge. I Feel Love, that kind of stuff, that real synthesized stuff. Here's a 12-inch single, Hot Stuff. Special one-sided record, Play the Other Side. Yeah, thanks a lot for not giving me something on the B-side. On the radio, so this was one I picked up when I was doing my early 70s parties because it had a lot of her hits on it. Supertramp. I used to be a bigger fan of Supertramp, and I've got a couple earlier albums like this one. Then Crime of the Century was their first, I guess, massive hit. We've got This Is Live, Alien, recorded on the 1976 tour. Never liked that album cover too much. This is the son of the person on the King Crimson album. Remember that? I don't have that album anymore. Even in the Quietest Moments. I like this album, and the title track is excellent. And then the huge hit, when I was in school, grade school, this was like 4 singles off here, all huge hits. And then they nosedived. This is with the song It's Raining Again. So they couldn't really follow up the big album. Taste of Honey, more disco. And some James Taylor here. I've got both of these, Mudslide Slim and JT. Used to have the greatest hits, don't know what happened to it. Up with People. So if you're going to have a Super Bowl in 1971, this is who you want doing the halftime entertainment. The back of the album there. Couldn't pass that one up. And the Village People. So here's an early one. This is before they were getting their outfits together. And this is the Macho Man. And of course, this has YMCA on it. So they were just going crazy. I had no idea they were gay. No idea at all. Of course, I was a kid. Go West, this has got In the Navy. Live and Sleazy. So this was stuff, fodder for my 70s parties that people like, they had this many albums? Like, I guess they did. And then we've got Can't Stop the Music. This is a movie they were in. Would you believe it was directed by Nancy Walker, the diminutive redhead from like Rhoda? She directed this. And Bruce Jenner's in it. I had never heard of it, actually, until I, years later did some research on it. Finally found it in a bin somewhere. Probably paid a couple bucks for it. Probably overpaid. Okay, Joe Walsh. So I love Joe Walsh, and I guess this is his first solo album, Barnstorm, which is kind of considered a band. But this is Mother Says. This is a really great rock album, and this is one I put on the turntable pretty often. We got So What. This has got Turn to Stone on it. Help Me Through the Night, which is the first time the Eagles backed him on that song. And this is 1974, I believe. So the Eagles played with Walsh the first time on this record. The smoker, you play the smoker, you drink, the player you got. I can't even say it. I'm not even drinking. Anyway, this is, he's always had the fun titles. But seriously, folks, this has got the very big hit, Life's Been Good. He always kept it light for us when rock sometimes got a little too serious. This is one of the first albums I bought by him because I loved the song Rivers of the Hidden Funk. Now that song was discarded from the sessions from the Eagles, the Long Run sessions. That was originally to be a double album. And why you wouldn't have two Joe Walsh songs on the Long Run is beyond me, because I love the song Rivers of Hidden Funk. Would have made a great addition to that album, The Long Run, but they didn't put it on there. In fact, the version on here is the Eagles backing track. So that, essentially the Eagles version is on here. Life of Illusion is also on here. The Confessor, this is more later 80s. Still doing some good stuff, and this is when I started to see him live. He'd come through town and I'd check him out. This has got Rosewood Bitters on it. Good album. All right, we got, Barry White. Yeah, Woo Baby. Love Unlimited Orchestra. And I wish I had more Stevie Wonder. I've gotten rid of a couple things. This is Inner Visions. So Stevie Wonder in the, really 70 to 77 was just on fire. I mean, very few artists could touch him in terms of overall, I guess, quality of the music and great songs, great playing. And so I bought this one early on. This is like a greatest hits double album of the 70s into the early 80s. So that's how I got a lot of his big hits through this record. And the song I really liked in '82 was a song called That Girl. Loved that song. This goes all the way up to Isn't She Lovely? So I was kind of over him by then, but not the best cover, but great music within. Yes. Now my buddy Paul's got a lot of Yes, so I just refer to him for that. And I always loved this album, which is the third album, 1971. We got Fragile, and then they started employing the same artists to do a lot of their covers. Very cool logo. Good bass player. And then I even had this one. This was big in the high school years. I still like this album, actually. I like their 80s stuff as well. And to round things off here, we've got On the Move, Dionne Warwick, Glenn Campbell, Burt Bacharach. On the Move, the Chevrolet 70s. So I picked this up just for this back cover, not for this. But this is the Monte Carlo. So, I mean, I prefer the 1976 body style of the Monte Carlo with the swivel seats. Remember those? But I thought this was kind of interesting, a little curio. And then finally, To the Good Life. I forgot what this is. Columbia. So it's like join us on a musical flight to glamorous places. So it's got various artists, but the person that's sold this to me said this was Kate Jackson. I don't think that's Kate Jackson. It could be, but I don't think it is. By this time, this is 1973. She was already, I think, in the Rookies by then. So anyway, there you have it. That is the rest of my 70s collection. And as you can see, it covers a lot of stuff from my childhood, my whole 70s party thing, and fun stuff just to kind of laugh at. Very campy stuff. The classic rock stuff I've been kind of getting rid of little by little, mainly because I've heard it so much, I just don't feel the need to have it on my shelves anymore. And that's why I got rid of Zeppelin, and I got rid of my Joni Mitchell albums, my original stuff, and others as well that aren't here. So that, to me, is, and I still will probably be sorting some of this out and getting rid of more stuff and getting into the hands of people that really want to collect it and need it more than me. And, I've had my time with it, so I'm ready to pass it on. Hey, Bogey, how you doing over there? Man, you're out like a light. Come here. What are you doing? You gonna say hi to everybody? There you are. Hey, Bogues. So anyway, from Bogey and me, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around for all 4 parts. And we'll be resuming with my regularly scheduled 60s topics very soon here on Pop Goes the 60s.